He moved silently down the empty hallway, the janitor's cart creaking softly under his hands. The fluorescent lights flickered above, casting long shadows that stretched toward the far end. A student ID lay on the floor, smeared with dark streaks that could only be blood. His eyes snapped to the locker at the end of the hall, slightly ajar, a shadow shifting behind the door. Nobody else was there, yet something about the scene made his stomach twist. The air was heavy, thick with tension, as if the school itself was holding its breath. He knew instantly, this was no accident. This is the empathy room, where ordinary people notice truths that everyone else overlooks. Every night holds a story, and every story reminds us how much can be hidden in plain sight. Subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because tonight, you're about to see what one quiet observer uncovered while the rest of the school slept. Alex, 16, moved through the silent corridors with the quiet confidence of someone invisible. The school at night was his world, and in that darkness, he saw what others overlooked. Footprints in the dusty tiles, a vent slightly loose, a scuff on the wall where someone had brushed past too quickly. These details told a story, and Alex listened. Most students never noticed him. Most teachers barely acknowledged his presence. But that invisibility gave him an advantage no one else had. Every object, every sound, every small anomaly became a piece of a puzzle. Tonight, he was not just cleaning. He was watching, noticing, piecing together fragments that might reveal a truth the world had already dismissed. The air felt heavier than usual, carrying an unspoken tension that set his nerves on edge. Something was out of place. Something was wrong. And Alex could feel it in the subtle shifts around him. Alex reached the storage closet at the far end of the hallway and paused, his hand resting on the edge of the door. The faint light from the hallway barely touched the interior, but he could see enough. She was there. A student slumped against the wall, barely conscious, her uniform disheveled and streaked with blood. Broken items littered the floor, and a small phone lay cracked at her side. The scene told him everything the arriving authorities would miss. Someone had tried to cover this up. Every instinct in Alex screamed that this was no accident, that the marks on the floor, the scuff on the doorframe, and the hurried placement of the backpack were deliberate. He crouched near her, careful not to move anything, eyes scanning the shadows for a clue, any hint of the person responsible. He could feel the tension in the air, a weight pressing down as though the building itself was holding its breath. Alex realized in that moment that the quiet observer in the night, the janitor, was the only one who could see the truth. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the hallway, and soon, the officers arrived, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. They glanced at the scene, made a few notes, and declared it an accident. Alex watched, his jaw tight, knowing that everything they saw was only part of the story. The broken phone, the scattered backpack, the faint trail of marks on the floor. These were details too small for them to notice, yet each one screamed a different truth. The officers left quickly, confident in their judgment, leaving Alex alone with the evidence they ignored. He knelt beside the student, checking her pulse and making mental notes, aware that if he didn't act, this story would remain buried. Every instinct told him that someone had been careful, methodical, trying to make this look like an accident, and only someone watching closely in the quiet of the night could see the pattern. Alex straightened, determination hardening in his chest. The authorities had missed it, but he would not. Alex moved quietly through the school, retracing steps that no one else had bothered to notice. Every footprint in the dust, every scuff on the floor, every item slightly out of place became a piece of the puzzle. He examined the broken phone again, noting messages that had been deleted but hinted at hurried conversations. A notebook lay on a desk, pages askew, containing scribbled notes that made no sense at first, until he matched them with faint markings on the hallway floor. Each small clue built a pattern, one the police had missed entirely. His mind worked quickly, connecting the dots in a way only someone who had watched the school in silence could. The deeper he looked, the more he realized the story was deliberate. Someone had staged the scene, planned the narrative, and trusted that no one invisible would notice. Alex's pulse quickened as he followed the trail of evidence, realizing that each discovery brought him closer to the truth, and closer to uncovering the person who had tried to hide it all. The night seemed endless, yet every second drew him nearer to what the police had overlooked. Alex pieced everything together, the fragments forming a picture the police had never seen. The so-called accident was staged, every mark and movement calculated. The messages on the phone, the notebook with hurried notes, the trail of objects in the hallways, all pointed to one person. He could see the motive, the panic, the attempts to cover up a cheating scandal that had gone too far. Every observation he had made throughout the night now clicked into place, revealing a methodical plan that had relied on the world not paying attention. Alex felt a surge of urgency. He had to act before the trail went cold. He memorized the sequence, rehearsed how he would confront the student, and prepared himself for the moment of truth. Nothing had been overlooked, no detail too small, no clue insignificant. For hours, the invisible observer had watched, noticed, and now understood. The truth was clear, and there was no turning back. Alex waited until the hallways were empty and the quiet of the night pressed against every wall. He approached the student, evidence in hand, calm but unwavering. The confrontation was precise, each question measured, each observation laid bare. The student hesitated, the story unraveling as Alex presented every detail, every discrepancy, every clue that had been dismissed by those who claimed to investigate. Slowly, the truth emerged in fragments, then in full. The confession came, reluctant but undeniable. Authorities were called again, this time with clarity and proof that could not be ignored. The student who had tried to hide the crime had nowhere left to hide, and justice finally followed. Alex stepped back, silent, unseen, a small observer who had carried the weight of vigilance through the night. Sometimes the quietest people notice the most. Sometimes, it takes someone who sees what everyone else overlooks to bring the truth into the light. Tonight, the smallest observer had changed everything. As the culprit was escorted away, Alex finally allowed himself a slow breath, the tension in the hallway lifting like fog in the morning. The injured student watched him with wide, grateful eyes, and even the skeptical officers gave a nod of respect. He had done what no one else had, noticed the small details, followed the trail, and ensured justice was served.